The day my daughter told me she wanted to move to Europe was the day my world quietly cracked in two. She stood there with her suitcase half-packed, eyes bright with dreams of a life I could never give her, and spoke of opportunities, freedom, and a future she believed she deserved. I listened, nodding even as my heart tightened, because I wanted to be supportive. What mother doesn't want her child to chase happiness? But I couldn't ignore the shadow that loomed behind her words. Her little boy, my grandson, standing in the corner clutching his toy car, looking at his mother with pure trust. She didn't just want to chase her dream. She wanted to leave him behind. It's only for a while, she said, her voice almost casual, as if leaving your own child was something temporary, like putting a book back on the shelf. Once I settle, once I have a place and a good job, I'll send for him. He'll be better off there anyway. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to hold on to the idea that this was temporary. But deep inside, a heavy ache told me she wasn't running toward a future. She was running away from responsibility. At the small train station that morning, my grandson's little hand wrapped around mine. I tried to smile. He tugged at my arm and whispered, "Grandma, when is Mommy coming back?" My throat closed, but I forced cheer into my voice. "Soon, sweetheart, very soon." She boarded that train without looking back, not even once, and in that moment, something inside me shattered. I wanted to scream, to chase after her, to beg her to take her son, but pride and pain held me back. I just squeezed his hand tighter and whispered to myself, "I'll protect you. I promise." A life after that was nothing short of a battlefield. I was no longer young. My back ached, my knees protested, and even simple tasks left me breathless. I lived on a pension barely enough to cover my food and medicine. Adding the needs of a growing child to that small budget felt like trying to hold back a storm with nothing but my bare hands. But he needed me, and so I pushed forward. We cut corners everywhere. I skipped meals so he could have enough milk. I ignored my prescriptions when his shoes wore out. I patched old clothes until the fabric gave up. At night, I would tuck him into bed and listen to his laughter echo in my ears, telling myself his happiness was enough to carry me through my own hunger and exhaustion. And most days it was. But there were nights when reality struck with cruel force. Bills stacked on the table, the landlord's warnings grew sharper, and the cupboards grew emptier. My heart clenched when I saw him sitting quietly by the window, watching the other children in the neighborhood with their bright toys and colorful snacks. He never asked for anything, not once. Instead, he would smile at me with a maturity far beyond his years and say, "It's okay, Grandma, I'm happy." That broke me more than any hunger could, because I knew he was pretending for my sake. One day, when the fridge was nearly empty and my heart felt heavier than my body could bear, I did something I had promised myself I wouldn't. I reached out to my daughter. My hands shook as I typed the words, shame washing over me with every letter. "Can you please send $40? It would help us so much." It wasn't a fortune, just $40, enough for groceries, enough for a week's survival. Enough to buy him a small treat so he could feel like a child again. Hours later, her reply came, cold, detached. "I can't. Life here is expensive. You'll have to manage. It's not my problem anymore." Not her problem. I stared at those words until the screen blurred with my tears. How could she say that about her own son? The little boy who once reached for her, who cried for her at night, who still whispered her name in his sleep. I wanted to hurl the phone across the room, to scream, "He is your child, not a problem to be discarded." But I didn't. I sat in silence, tears dripping down, my chest aching with a pain words couldn't describe. That night, I gave him the last bit of rice left in the pot and went to bed with an empty stomach. He kissed my cheek, smiling as if I had given him a feast. I turned my face away so he wouldn't see me crying. The following days blurred together in a haze of worry and exhaustion. Every time I looked at my grandson's face, I forced a smile, but inside the cracks widened. I told myself I had to be strong for him, but sometimes at night, when the house was quiet, I broke. My body ached, my mind spun, and my heart whispered, "How much longer can you keep going like this?" I tried everything I could. I cleaned houses whenever my back allowed it, scrubbing floors until my knees throbbed, washing windows that blurred my vision with sweat and tears. I sold small things I had collected over the years, items that once held sentimental value, but now had to be exchanged for bread and milk. Sometimes I went an entire day without eating, so there would be enough left for him. I told myself it didn't matter, that my hunger was nothing compared to his smile. But my body reminded me, with weakness and trembling, that I was not as strong as I once was. Neighbors began to notice. Some would leave a loaf of bread quietly by my door. Others would press a few dollars into my palm, pretending it was nothing. Their kindness warmed me, but it also made me feel small, ashamed that I had to rely on strangers when my own daughter had turned her back on us. My grandson never complained, but his eyes told stories he couldn't put into words. He started asking questions. "Grandma, why doesn't Mommy call me anymore? Why doesn't she send me birthday presents like the other moms do?" Each time, my heart twisted. What could I say? The truth was too sharp, too cruel for a child's heart. So I lied, weaving fragile hope into my words. "She's busy, sweetheart. She's working hard so she can bring you to her one day. She loves you very much." He would nod slowly as if he wanted to believe me, but at night when he thought I was asleep, I would hear him whispering into the darkness, "Mommy, I miss you. Please come back. Please don't forget me." Those whispers cut deeper than any hunger, deeper than any exhaustion, because they were filled with a longing I couldn't erase. Sometimes I found him sitting by the window, staring at the road as if expecting her to appear. He would hold his toy car tightly, the one she had bought him before she left, and whisper, "Maybe today." When the day passed and she didn't come, he would smile at me and say, "It's okay, Grandma, I'll wait." One evening, as I tucked him into bed, he looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes and said words that both broke and mended me. "Grandma, don't worry. When I grow up, I'll take care of you. I'll make lots of money, and you'll never have to ask anyone for anything again." I couldn't hold it in. The tears spilled, and I pulled him close, clutching him, as if letting go would shatter me. My tears soaked his hair as he patted my back with his little hand, as if he were the adult and I the child. How could a boy so young carry such promises? He should have been dreaming of toys and games, not of saving me from the weight of the world. Yet his words gave me strength. If he could dream for me, then I had to fight for him. I had to keep going, no matter how heavy the burden, no matter how deep the loneliness. The $40 I had begged for never came. What came instead was silence. My daughter didn't call, didn't write, didn't ask about her son. The little girl I once raised with so much love seemed to have vanished into a stranger I no longer knew. I replayed every memory. Every night I stayed up sewing her clothes. Every meal I skipped so she could eat. Every tear I wiped from her cheeks when she was small. Did all of that mean nothing to her now? Had she truly forgotten who she was, where she came from, the mother who carried her, and the son she left behind? The questions haunted me, but I could not let them consume me. My grandson needed love, and I was determined to give him enough for two parents. We learned to create joy from the smallest things. We painted on scraps of paper, turning old magazines into canvases. We planted seeds in old cans, watching with excitement as green sprouts pushed through the soil. We laughed at silly stories, made up songs, and turned shadows on the wall into imaginary friends. He never once told me he felt poor, and I never once told him how close we were to losing everything. Together, we built a fragile world of love and laughter, a shield against the pain of abandonment. Every night before I closed my eyes, I whispered the same prayer, not for money, not for comfort, but for strength. Strength to wake up each morning and keep going. Strength to protect his innocence for as long as I could. Strength to love him enough to fill the space his mother had left empty. Time has a way of moving forward even when your heart feels stuck. Days turned into months, and months began to blur into years. My grandson grew taller, his shoes wearing out faster, his questions about his mother becoming quieter. He stopped asking if she would come home soon, stopped sitting by the window with his toy car waiting for her. Instead, he carried his silence like a shield, and that hurt me in a way I can hardly describe. It felt like watching hope drain out of a child's eyes. I never stopped speaking kindly of her to him, though. No matter how much bitterness threatened to choke me, I refused to let him carry that weight. He didn't deserve to know the coldness of her replies, the emptiness of her absence, the cruelty of her indifference. I told him she loved him, that she was working hard, that one day he would see her again. Maybe I was lying. Maybe I was holding on to a dream I didn't believe myself, but I needed him to feel loved, even by the mother who had abandoned him. At night, after he fell asleep, I would sit by the window and stare at the stars, wondering if she was looking at the same sky across the ocean. Did she ever think of us? Did she feel even a flicker of guilt when she laid her head down to sleep? Or had she buried the memory of her son so deep that it no longer touched her heart? The questions were endless, but answers never came. And yet, as much as she hurt me, as much as she disappointed me, I couldn't bring myself to hate her fully. Because I remembered the little girl she once was, the child who held my hand crossing the street, the teenager who cried in my lap after her first heartbreak, the daughter I sacrificed everything for. That girl was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize, but my heart still clung to her memory. Maybe it was foolish, maybe it was weakness, but a mother's love is stubborn even when it bleeds. My grandson became my reason for living. Every day I woke up with one thought: to give him love enough to cover the void his mother had left. We celebrated birthdays with homemade cakes, small and lopsided but filled with joy. On holidays, I wrapped tiny gifts in newspaper, pretending it was part of a game. His laughter became my medicine, his hugs my strength. He gave me more than I could ever give him. There were moments when the weight felt unbearable, when I thought I couldn't go on. But then I'd see him running through the yard with his hair catching the sunlight, or hear his laughter echo through the house, and I knew I had to keep fighting. He deserved a childhood filled with love, even if it wasn't perfect. He deserved to grow up knowing he was wanted, cherished, protected. And in my quiet moments I prayed, not for money, not for ease, but for resilience. For the ability to keep walking even when my body begged me to stop. For the strength to guide him until he was strong enough to guide himself. For the patience to forgive my daughter, even if she never returned, because holding anger would only poison the love I wanted to pour into him. As he grew older, his words changed. He no longer whispered to his absent mother at night. Instead, he whispered promises to me. "Grandma, I'll study hard. I'll make you proud. I'll take care of you when I'm big." Each time, those words broke me and healed me all at once. He shouldn't have had to carry that weight, but he carried it anyway, with love, not with bitterness, and that gave me hope. The $40 I once asked for, the message that shattered me, it became a symbol of everything I had to accept. She would not be there for him. She would not be there for me, but I would. I would be enough. I had to be. Maybe one day, when he is grown and strong, he will look back and understand. He will see the nights I went hungry so he could eat, the mornings I woke in pain but still walked him to school, the quiet tears I hid so he could feel safe. Maybe he will realize that though his mother left, he was never unloved, never unwanted, because I was here. I am here and I always will be.